What's Ripening YouTube. I've been getting a lot of requests for updates on my YouTube channel, and I know I haven't really been that active on YouTube lately. If you want to go back and see what I'm up to, I've been doing a lot of posting on my Instagram at Peace River Organics, which is location specific for this farm, and that is more in line with my business versus my other Instagram account at What's Ripening is more of like a general things I find that aren't necessarily mine kind of thing. But I wanted to just kind of walk through some of my systems that I've been working on and give you an update and kind of show you a little bit of things that I'm working on, some new ideas, putting things into practice. And so I'm going to turn the camera around and see what we can see. Oh shoot, I don't know how to do it. Okay, so this is kind of towards the front of my property. There's the road. Here's my bamboo that's been growing for the last 4 years. I'll probably touch on that at some point. I'm sure you'd like to hear pros and cons of these different types, so I can probably go into that. But up here in the front, I had my initial planting and they're spaced out really far, my trees. You see there's a mulberry in the back, mulberry in the front. The trees are spaced about 25 feet apart with the intention of putting in larger larger mid to long term elements in between. In this case, I have coconuts that I'm adding in. Originally, I had this set up a little more disorganized, and then over time what I've started to do is incorporate some of the syntropic stuff. So I've started to put in my eucalyptus. I've started to add my ingas. You can see those back here. And what I'm working on now is fertility systems. And what I mean by that is establishing systems that produce their own fertility. So when I first established my beds here, you'll see there's some pretty old wood chips in here. And over time, this is broken down and you end up with this gorgeous soil underneath. And that's great. But what I'm interested in now is how to make this sustainable, or even beyond sustainable. So having that early input is great. That's what gets the thing started. That's what lights the match. But I need something to keep it burning. And so what I'm doing is experimenting with different types of biomass production plants. And what you'll see here is a succession. Sorry about the noise. So this bed here was the first one I did of the series, and that's why you'll see that the Tithonia has grown up a lot more, and I've already been cutting it. And what I've been doing with the Tithonia, or the Mexican sunflower, is placing it around my bananas. And the bananas are planted. If you've been on my Instagram, you see how I've been planting bananas lately. I've changed it up a little bit. I've really kind of started to adopt a lot of these Brazilian agroforestry methods. If you're interested in that, I can make a separate video about how to do the bananas. But basically, let me go back here. If you look at how this is set up, I have a midline with my main trees on the mounds. There's 2 mulberries in here. And then down the middle, let me see if I can get in here. Down the middle, there's a coconut halfway in between, and then I've got a little citrus and another little citrus and another little citrus. So citrus are kind of in between the coconut and the main tree. And then I've got a whole succession of service plants, different types of nitrogen fixing beans, like low ground cover like jack bean. And then I've got albizia. I've got little bits of moringa in here. I've got lucena and a whole bunch of different things that are in there that are just filling in the space while the new planting builds up. And then on each side of the bed, I've got what I'm calling my service beds, or my service lines. And the idea is that this all feeds the main planting. So when I initially set this up, I use pretty bulky stuff. I didn't have a wood chipper, so that's why you see it's pretty bulky, woody, pretty chunky material. And then I actually cut hay out in the middle of the field and used it just to kind of cover it, to try to shade it and give it some humidity. And eventually that's going to break down. So that's what I did on both sides of the bed. And then, like I said, I have these Tithonia and I have other service plants that I'm using. some of it I'm using to build up my bananas, and then some of it I'm using to build up my beds. So the bananas for me are going to be a crop species. I do intend to produce bananas. I'm trialing out different varieties that I haven't had on the farm before. And so I have each row is a different species. But down the line, I also have my canna lilies. I have my tithonia. In different beds, I have different combinations of species. And then what I've done recently is I went and disked along the edge of the bed, and this is actually a pearl millet that I seeded in. That's what this grass, it looks like grass. This is actually pearl millet, and this is meant to be a pretty intense cover crop. And what I want to do is grow just a absolute ton of biomass to get up to whatever height I decide I want to cut it at. And then I'm going to come in here and bush hog it down, and I've got a new machine that's called a rotary rake, or not a rotary rake, a belt rake that I just ordered, that's actually going to rake it all to the side and then place it along this edge. And so my idea is that I'm going to build up this huge biomass bank, cut it down, push it, and then have it along the edge to protect my edge. And so that's one of the big maintenance chores with having, lots of edges and lots of beds. Sometimes, in this case, I'm letting the Wooddelia kind of take its place because that's what wants to be here. In other parts of my system, I'm trying to keep it out. And so keeping it out involves pulling it up and having something else in that space, because something wants to take that space, whether it's sweet potato or Wooddelia or grass or whatever it is. But by having this cut and placed material, if it grows up high and I mulch it to the side, I can protect that side of my bed. And that's what I'm experimenting with this summer. And I'm experimenting with it in different ways. This is another bed where I just disked it lightly and scattered the pearl millet, but you'll see there's grass coming up too. So what I want to see, because I haven't planted this myself before, is can the millet compete with the existing grass if it's just disked lightly? Because I didn't really turn the soil that much. I wanted to see how much of a disturbance is required and what I can get out of it biomass wise over the summer. And you'll see, so this is the tree line we just looked at. The next one over is a different set of main species, but I still have my coconuts in between every other. Coconut, and then further down. On this bed I have sugarcane, canna, again bananas are coming up, and then I've got my tithonia, but they're younger, so they're not really taking their space yet. They take a little while. Usually the first, you get your first cutting up, you can get one decent cut off of it. Usually by the time you get your second cutting, you've got a pretty good biomass production plant, but it takes a little while to get there. But this canna I found during the rainy season is a really good biomass production plant too. This one right here. There is some edibility to the root, but it's not really the focus of the planting. I'm using it to create dense organic material, and it's easy to propagate. So one of the things I'm experimenting with, or one of the things I'm focusing on with these experiments, is things that I can propagate cheaply and quickly, things that are already here or that I can get pretty easily, and things that are going to last a long time. So the pearl millet, I had to buy the seed for that, and that's an experiment. The question is, do I need to buy the seed every year, or is there a way to harvest the seed, or is there a better option besides that? Maybe there's a perennial option that I can cut indefinitely, just like I'm doing with my pasture. So this interbed, the space in between the tree lines, is just the existing pasture. I'm going to let it grow nice and shaggy, come in and cut it and rake it just like I explained on the other beds over there. Here you'll see that I've got my eucalyptus, and I've been maintaining it. The first couple years I just lifted the skirt up, just pruned all the side branches, and then I actually waited longer than I should have, but I finally cut the tops of these off a couple months ago. Some of them I just did the other day, but I kind of did I did this row. You see I only have 3 in this row. I did these 3 like 3 or 4 months ago. This I did maybe 6 weeks ago. The next bed over I did a month ago, and then you see those naked sticks right there. Those are ones we just did yesterday, so they haven't regrown yet. But I've been experimenting with different pruning styles. These eucalyptus, let me show you how much material you can get out of one of these things. They produce a lot of material, so I haven't even had time to come back and organize this, but this is all the prunings from these trees. It's quite a lot of material, and what I'm doing is just loading it up on both sides of my tree line. This tree line here, I haven't gone in and filled in my new planting yet. I just have my existing main trees, and we actually I took some bananas out of here. I took out a bunch of stuff so I can reorganize. I'm gonna get my coconut, just like you see over there. I have a coconut in between the two main trees. Coconut, two main trees, coconut. I'm following that pattern through this whole part of the property. But the eucalyptus, as you can see now, it's not shading anybody. Even when it's up and pushing out this new growth, it's going to take a while before it really has much of an effect on the lower strata. So this is my emergent layer, and I'm pruning it to keep it at that layer. And what I'm doing with my Inga, which is these trees here, I'm considering these my high layer. So what I've done is I've lifted some of the canopy up. I'm leaving some of the main structure of the tree so that when these branches are a little bit heavier, some of them I can already climb, but when these get a little heavier, it's easy for me to climb up here, cut the tops off, maintain my height just below these. You know, these I have cut pretty high. I'll probably cut them a little lower next time. But I'm keeping that as my high, and then I've got everything else growing up behind it. And eventually the Ingas are going to be replaced with something else. So right now they're just the service. Here you can see Mexican sunflower that was recently cut, so it's having its regrowth. I'm using the galangal, more bananas. There's some lebic in here. This bed I haven't actually finished replanting yet. And then you can see as I'm progressing, this one I haven't done at all. And then the one down the end, all I've done so far is just pruned it. Well, I want to give you a look at this Inga. So these trees up here, these are all ice cream bean trees. And I pruned them about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. And take a look at all the new growth. Let's see if I can zoom in. I don't know if you can see that, but they definitely appreciate a good pruning. So these trees had basically closed canopies, not quite, but it was like a shady alleyway through here. So by pruning these out, I gave myself a lot of organic material to put down on my trees, and I gave myself a lot of sunlight to plant out this midline. And what I did for this, you know, on the two sides, I used the millet the same way that I did on those other beds, but then I did a huge down the middle stripe of this sun hemp, this crotalaria, and it's just gone berserk. I mean, the nice thing was the day that we put the seed out was overcast. We put it out late in the day, and then it rained like all afternoon, so it really got it to germinate like all at the same time. And again, this was just disking, and so far I'm pretty impressed with the sun hemp. The millet, I'm waiting to see if it's going to really take on its space or if it's going to be, you know, a little bit lagging. But right now I'm pretty excited about the sun hemp. Same idea, it's going to grow up nice and high. As soon as it starts to flower or indicate that it's going to flower, I'm going to cut it down, use it on both sides. Or I might cut it down and collect it and use it elsewhere if I need it somewhere else. These beds are pretty well established, so I don't know if they really need everything that I give them. But that's gonna be it for this part. I'm gonna make some more videos and kind of walk through more of the property, but I don't want to make these so long that you can't get to them. So anyway, that's it for now. If you got any questions, I'll do my best to answer them when I have time. But that's the front end. That's what's going on, and I'll see you next time.